Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And banksters are not your friend, good people. And another great example of why is Wells Fargo, Warren Buffett's favorite bank. Wells Fargo is, plagued with another scandal. It's one of about $1 billion that I can recall from the last year. But anyway, as the article in Zero Hedge says, Wells Fargo may be hit with repeat offender formal enforcement action. It's beginning to seem like every day there's a new scandal breaking out at Wells Fargo, as the article says. Earlier this week, the Wall Street Journal dished on Wells Fargo's latest scandal when it reported that several regulators and even one U.S. attorney were investigating the bank for gouging clients of its foreign exchange trading desk. Among the many humiliating details, the public learned that Wells had tacitly encouraged this behavior with an idiosyncratic bonus structure and even embarrassed and demoted an employee who complained to management about this behavior. The scandal marked the latest blemish on Wells Fargo's once pristine public image following a series of other scandals in its retail lending and banking division. Earlier this year, the public learned that Wells had forced customers in its auto lending division to buy collision insurance they didn't need. And when 20,000 customers refused or failed to pay the insurance, the bank had their cars repossessed. These were people who never actually paid for this car insurance. They were already insured, and then they just
there was several
piled it
ones
on.
that was already insured, and it's just terrible. Like they stole their cars basically from.
Absolutely, and another big one, I think probably the biggest, which it has been underreported considering the velocity of this scandal, has been the fact that 5,000 branch managers opened fake accounts in customers' names that the customers themselves were often unaware of, and the auto insurance scandal, which the bank publicly admitted over the summer. This montage of absolute corruption, and they're obviously guilty. If any normal person just basically extorted people of their money, it would be a totally different story. And of course, Wells Fargo has put out the collateralized debt obligations, which shows a big example of how the housing markets in many places are heading downhill when they repeat the same thing they did in 2007. It just piles on and on and on. John, what do you think?
Yeah, there were millions of accounts that were defrauded through these fake accounts that they created, and of course, they make money on when they create that account. There's fees involved, right?
Yeah.
So there's always, you got to remember, this is how the bank makes money, is through fees and through the interest on the mortgages or loans that they borrow to people. That's the only business that they have, really. Mm-hmm. And that's how they try to gouge people at whatever point they can. And now the latest was Forex trading, where they took excessive amounts of fees and just really like trying to, I seen and heard about mutual funds, starting to trade forth and back a lot more in order to make more transaction fees while the person is unaware.
Well, John, what do you think this is a symptom of? Because we are watching, I'm sure there's more banks that do the very same thing that just haven't been caught yet.
Oh, of course it is. The symptom here is just the failure of the monetary system, because the banks have run out of people to steal money from, and now they gotta just come up with innovative ways of defrauding people because they have no more money to make in the real market, so they had to go out and make fake market out there. And of course, they're constantly, having bad loans taken off their books and bought by the Federal Reserve. There's so much scamming going on in the whole banking industry with the manipulation of gold and silver prices and other commodities.
The paper prices.
Yeah, all the paper prices.
ETFs.
It's just ridiculous. Then there's of course the massive collusion between banks and government with the 401ks in the U.S., in Canada the RSPs.
And we can't forget about the implementation of the cashless system, the bail-in regimes that are being written into legislation throughout the world. So you can't do any runs on the banks. They are taking out depositors' money and spending it on their risky, debts, and it just piles higher and higher.
Yeah, it used to be savings and loan banks, which you save money, put into it, and then they loan out the money to people for real estate and business loans, and then they made a profit on that, gave you some of the profit back in your savings. Well, now they also are involved in investing at the same time. We did some articles, I think it was a Japanese bank, that were investing in massive amounts of stocks. So this suddenly the bank became a mutual fund. So it just shows you the bankster industry, these mobs of these massive cartels worldwide, what they're up to, and of course they have control over most of the central banks in the world.
Yeah.
So that's how they run stuff, and that's probably the biggest thing that we don't that the general public doesn't understand, is that these bankers actually get money and interest from their investment with the Federal Reserve for the Wells Fargo and others in their local branches that they own a part of the Federal Reserve.
It's just like a lying politician that's really bad at lying. I mean, there's these reports that Wells Fargo may face more federal sanctions over these issues. And I mean, it's just laughable because we know how they're working with the government. We know that they're just being really careless when a lot of other banks are being a lot smarter about their stealing and scheming and screwing people over. So, I mean, it's just another example of why we have to be self-sufficient, self-responsible, financially responsible, and escape the banking system, escape centralization, escape manipulation, escape this control of we the individual, and look towards, you know, the wealth insurance like gold, silver, Bitcoin, which is decentralized assets. Stay away from the government and the banking system because they thrive off of debt.
Yeah, get off the monetary grid.
Absolutely, they thrive off of debt. So, as I always say, if they shove you down that bottomless pit of debt, you're forced to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, which puts you in perfect servitude.
But listen, Josh, when we're in deep debt, they'll just say, "Oh, we'll increase your limit on your credit card so we can get into more debt."
Yeah, and then we have like Mario Draghi, and I know this is going to happen in most places where you see it in Canada as well. This push for a very small amount of insurance, if any, on your deposits if there's like a bank bail-in where they just seize all your money, and then this push towards a cashless system, as I mentioned, that's going worldwide right now, and then this manipulation of the housing market, this manipulation of the stock market, derivatives run amok, and then of course the monetary system collaboration with the printing of fiat currency out of thin air, debt devaluing, and then of course the inflation, the hidden tax, and this push towards this massive debt enslavement of the populace under this fiat system where all fiat currencies eventually revert to their intrinsic value of zero. Always have, always will. It's just a repeat offense. We talk about being a repeat offender. I mean, their very existence is an offense against humanity. But of course, people voluntarily go to that bank and they put money into that bank. And that's why we are here to educate people so they stop doing that.
Yeah, they're high on cocaine, and what they need to do is defraud and steal from people in order to get more cocaine. Cocaine actually triggers the same place in your brain as money.
Yeah.
So it just shows you it's monetary cocaine. That's what these banks are.
I'm sure they have a little bit of both. Sometimes both at the same time. You know, use a bill.
Exactly. So they use it in comparison with each other. Now, what you got to understand, these banks, they created derivatives. That was a symptom of the whole failure of the banking system. They had to create those derivatives in order to make more money on top of what they already had, because they limited out. They stopped making enough money, and they got to pay more dividends to their big shareholders, so they had to increase their profits. And how did it do that? Well, they created all these derivatives and all these schemes in order to do that on top of it. So now you had they hit the limit in defrauding people, and then they had to put on the derivatives on top of that. So it's just they can't get any further now, in my point of view. They're at their death row, all these bankers. Yeah. And I think we're going to see, if I'm right, I think we're going to see, as I said back in 2013, that Bitcoin or blockchain is going to start taking over. The decentralized side is going to start taking over and make banks completely obsolete. All the bankers defrauding people now is just going to be peer-to-peer, and people have to trust each other, because it's better to actually have somebody anonymous that you transact with and start making trust with them than trust in the banks, to be honest with you.
Well, we are seeing what appears to be a lot of panic, more panic than we've ever seen before within the banking system, though they thinly veil it. And it just seems like a whole lot of irrationality, especially lately among bankers and different banks throughout the globe. And we see this push for, these, like we mentioned, the collateralized debt obligations are a perfect example. It's just irrationality and panic, and them trying to manipulate themselves into prosperity, but in the long run, they inflate that bubble bigger, and they shove themselves down that pit along with the people they're shoving down the pit as well. So this is why we have to be self-sufficient. It's so important now more than ever. It's better to be overprepared than underprepared. The fundamentals are off the table due to the level of manipulation in the markets and the monetary system, both. But we know it's going to happen, so therefore, why not be prepared? You have to actually look ahead of time instead of just looking in the past and looking at today. You have to look forward and understand the patterns. As Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, and we are watching it rhyme every single day now, and it's starting to worry a lot of us for good reason, because we're seeing a lot of what happened in the Great Depression and 2007, but on steroids. So we need to be incredibly safe about this and protect ourselves and our families for the future. So, John, final word?
Well, the final word is stay clear of the bankster cartel. And get off the monetary grid. That's the number one thing you have to do, because there's so much risk being in big banks today all over the world, having your money and trusting your money with these people, because you can clearly see what they're up to, and then they don't care. All they care about is making that profit. There's very few people left that actually cares about you. I know a couple of them that really cares, but there's way too many that follow this whole bankster cartel, and they're banksters, they're gangsters. They are criminals. They like to steal from you, and that's what they're doing. As Max Kaiser said, they're financial terrorists.
Yeah, that bankster word, I think it was coined by Anthony Hilder back in the 1960s, who unfortunately has been not doing so well in recent years after a stroke, but I still hope to talk to him someday soon. He was one of the first, but all the same, we've got a huge calamity on our hands, and we need to work really hard to be self-sufficient and independent. That's more important than anything. That is humanity itself. That's individual liberty. You cannot have freedom without responsibility. So until next time, thanks for watching, everyone. This is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth.
Be the change.
Like what you see here at WAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so overwhelmingly demonetized and censored by YouTube as the Anti-Defamation League comes in and flags all of our content as hate speech. You can also find me at Josh Sigurdson at steemit.com. That's steemit.com, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post via Steem, the cryptocurrency. You can also find our Bitcoin address in the description and the comments below, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And don't forget to come on down to Anarchapulco in Acapulco, Mexico in February, one of the best events of the year, and you can save money on your tickets by typing in promo code WAM. That's WAM. We'll leave the link below for you, and until next time, don't forget to subscribe. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.